Welcome to Yacht Femme, where we talk about the women that make the yachting industry. I'm your host, Andrea Tagliaferro. Learn who they are, how they got into yachting, and what they do today. Meet Alison Vassallo, partner at Fenech and Fenech Advocates and head of the yachting department. In 2004, she received her Doctorate of Laws from the University of Malta, and in 2005, she obtained her master's degree in International Maritime Law from the International Maritime Law Institute. For the past 19 years, Alison has advised and coordinated projects for owners, shipyards, and financiers on the acquisition and sale of private and commercial yachts. She provides legal support for registration, corporate services, financing, chartering, leasing, and fiscal requirements and solutions. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Yacht Femme. I am very excited to have with us Alison. So Alison Vassallo is a partner at Fenech and Fenech Advocates, and she heads the yachting department. We're going to learn a lot today about Alison. She is the first lawyer we have on the show. I'm very excited to learn a lot about this industry. I've been fascinated for a while there on her sector. So let's see how much she can share with us. Alison, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I didn't know I was the first lawyer. You just threw it at me now. So I need to, destroy some preconceptions. I can feel the pressure here. So thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you. And for everyone listening, she's not really she's underselling herself. She also does a lot of speaking events, moderate, keynote speak, and much more. So that's actually how I found her, because she was moderating a panel that I went as a guest. So let's dive in. And Alison, can you tell us a little bit about what is it that you do? And how did you get into yachting?
Okay, of course. So, I'm a lawyer by profession. So I'm a shipping lawyer by study. I had studied law at the University of Malta, and I did my master's in shipping in Malta. We happen to have a very excellent course based on our island, which is the International Maritime Law Institute course under the auspices of the IMO. So an extremely, prestigious master's in shipping, which I had done. And I joined Fenech and Fenech as a marine litigation lawyer. So my background is purely shipping. And as fate would have it, when I joined, the managing partner at the time, and Fenech, who is now my partner, this was 18 years ago, so quite some time now, said, Alison, of course, shipping in Malta is exceptionally important. Fenech and Fenech happens to be the leading shipping firm on the island, so I was pretty lucky to land that job. And she said, but I feel that yachting is becoming a very important niche. And the truth is, at the time, although Malta was always synonymous with shipping, of course, Malta is a historic maritime center for many reasons, which as well we can go into. One of which, of course, the most obvious one is the flag. Yachting was not something which Malta was associated with at the time. This is 18 years ago, which is quite recent history, but in yachting terms, it's quite a long time. And at the time, Anne said, I feel that this is becoming an important sector. The government is introducing measures to attract more yacht owners to the island, both physically and also by way of services that we offer. Our firm is exceptionally well placed in shipping, but we still have to develop a yachting niche. And she said, would you like to take it over? And of course I said yes. I had no clue what it was all about. I had never probably been on a yacht by then, and definitely not a super yacht. And yachting is not something you learn at university. So having a shipping background helped tremendously, because I know ships and I know maritime law relating to ships. But yachting is a mixed bag when you practice it as a lawyer. And there are very few actually in the world who actually just focus on yachting. It is a mixed bag. It is transactional. It is assisting the owner with buying the vessel or selling the vessel, or the shipyard with selling the vessel. It is the corporate elements of setting up the ownership of the yacht. it is dealing with the crew, it is dealing with the tax, really and truly assisting with all the legal stuff that one would have to deal with when buying anything else, such as a house. But of course, you're dealing with a very specific asset. And I started from the ground, Andrea. So I started really from scratch, you know, to an extent. But then on the other hand, I was very lucky because the firm already had a very strong reputation in shipping in Malta and internationally. And I could draw on the contacts we already had in the shipping world. So with law firms that are based in England, in Monaco, in Germany, to start entrusting us with their yachting work. And slowly, slowly, we built up a practice. That's it. I mean, in a nutshell, I could add a lot to that. But essentially, it was a mixture of chance, also the fact that, you know, I had my academic background that helped me. And also because I always loved shipping, and of course, I always wanted to do something connected with the sea in some way or another. But I never dreamt I would fall into this magnificent industry for sure.
So how long has it been since you started the yachting department in your firm?
I think it was pretty much a few months after I joined. I mean, we of course started the practice slowly, but then it kicked off pretty quickly because the way we are structured in the firm, Andrea, we already had all the disciplines that we needed to service yacht owners, right? So we have a very large ship registration department where we already registered a number of yachts, but of course cruise liners, of course commercial vessels, oil tankers, carriers, etc. So we had the knowledge to do with the registry. We had all the corporate law knowledge. We had the tax knowledge. We had the support that our corporate services company within the group gives to clients who set up companies in Malta. So all the tax, accountancy was in-house. So my role was really to, first of all, myself, learn what the industry is about, learn the specific laws relating to yachting, learn the services that Malta was offering from a tax corporate perspective, and then bring together all the different specialities we already had, okay? Package them together and target them to the yachting sector. So really, I think my role was to, you know, grow the practice. And then I was already very lucky because I already had a structure around me, which I could draw on. So with the yachting department, I guess, was set up within a matter of a year, perhaps from when I joined. So pretty quickly.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
So you did describe, and again, I am very unfamiliar with everything that entails lawyers in yachting and all the legal system, but you did mention so many different so many different parts that I actually thought they were siloed to different people, like people specializing only in tax, people specializing only in the crew or in the sail or and so on. So can you describe a little bit more, what are your daily tasks? Like, what is it that you have to do?
So it's a really good question, actually, Andrea, because when you look at other jurisdictions, such as the UK, such as Germany, lawyers tend to specialize in a particular area. So you would get a lawyer who is associated with litigation. So when problems arise with the shipyards or the refit or with the designers or with, you know, the various service providers that deal with the yachts or managers, etc. And then you have lawyers who specialize in transactional, so they would deal with the sale and purchase. And then you would have lawyers who specialize in tax. So the different specialities in other jurisdictions tend to be quite clearly defined.
Yes.
When it comes to Malta, because we tend to offer a very comprehensive set of services. So here I'm speaking of the flag, I'm speaking of the tax benefits, I'm speaking of the logistical benefits when yachts come to Malta. When you develop as a yachting lawyer in Malta, you tend to need to know everything. So in the sense that you need to have a very good overview of the whole process that is entailed when a client is buying or selling a yacht, or when a yard is, buying, trading in or selling a yacht or building a yacht. Which a building, of course, we don't have any yards that build yachts in Malta. So we do not really have that experience. We have refit yards. But then when it comes to the corporate services, the tax services, the flag services, and then also chartering activities, etc., that might start in Malta, we tend to offer all of these services within the firm. So to answer your question, my typical day can be pretty mixed. I mean, I can start from today. I've been assisting a client that has already purchased a vessel, who took delivery of the vessel in Italy. The vessel traveled to Malta to be subject to Maltese law for tax purposes. I met with the clients yesterday at the office, which is also a very big perk of operating from Malta, because you get to often meet the clients who would travel to take delivery. So it's also nice because you actually get to meet your clients in person. We met with the client yesterday and discussed all the various matters that we now need to deal with. So from the accounting perspective, from the crew perspective, the employment contracts, the payroll, etc. So a typical day would be either servicing clients that we've already started a relationship with, or who are in Malta, depending on the stage of the contract, or at the stage of the delivery, or advising new clients on what we can help them with, or preparing legal opinions that are then used by lawyers, for example, in England, in advising their clients on the tax status of yachts. So it's quite a varied practice, but always the bottom line is that you are servicing essentially someone who's, taking delivery of a vessel.
Mm-hmm. Seems like a lot of work. Seems like a lot. You do a lot, and that's a lot of work.
There's a big team, huh? So there is a big team of people who then do the various parts of that. So you have the corporate team who would be dealing with the corporate matters. You have the VAT and tax compliance team who are dealing with the daily filings for the company. You have the registration team who is dealing with the registration issues. I like to describe myself often also as a project manager, because I'm very often the first point of reference with the client and the family office. And it is then the team of people who I work with at the firm who are dealing, of course, with the day-to-day running. But I usually have oversight and overview of the various parts, like a puppeteer. You're sort of balancing and making sure that everything is running smoothly. I don't need to say that in this industry, the demands are very high. So it can be quite high pressured. Very often timings are very, very tight. Okay, so the client would be here with his boat, who would like to leave very soon because either there is a charter starting somewhere else, the boat needs to leave for Spain, or the client, if it's a private yacht, wants to start his holiday with his family. So you always want to make things as smooth and as efficient as possible. We are very lucky in Malta because the authorities tend to be extremely helpful. So there are a number of procedures that we need to carry out with the cooperation of the customs officials, of the VAT department. And we are very fortunate. And I think it's also why Malta is so popular as a jurisdiction, because the public sector and the government departments are really cooperative and really supportive. Because of course we depend a lot on the turnaround as well that they give us. So it's very much a team effort when then it comes to giving the best possible service.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you talk a lot about the clients, like the owners of the yachts, right? Is that your main client, or
Yes.
do you ever have your client being the brokerage that sold the yacht, or is it you just go directly to the owner?
Look, in the case of the yachting department, 90% of the time, the client is the owner, okay, or the family office. We do get engaged then by banks when it comes to, for example, having a situation where an owner is taking a loan to build or buy a boat, and the bank wants to register a mortgage over a Maltese flagged vessel as security, as protection for the loan. So through our ship finance department, we also act for a number of very large banks who give loans to owners that are buying Maltese registered yachts and vessels, of course, not just yachts. There are cases, yes, where we are engaged by management companies, by brokers, but usually in that situation, Andrea, it's usually a dispute or a potential dispute. For example, there would be a claim under a sale and purchase agreement, okay, for a yacht. And the broker feels that he is due an amount of brokerage fee, whereas the buyer or the seller would feel that it is not due to them. I'm just giving you an example. Or, for example, there is a management company that rendered services to the owner and wasn't paid for its management fee. So yes, within the context then of dispute resolution and marine litigation, we do a lot of that work, yes. But it's not something which falls within the sort of private client services that I handle immediately myself within my department. We only do the fun stuff, you know, just buying boats, making people happy, or selling boats.
But you said you also had the charter aspect. So what point?
Yes.
So at what point is it like
Mhm.
the client bought it, but he knows he knows he is immediately going to charter, and that's why you have to deal with the crew as well?
No, that is a really good. You're asking some excellent questions because that's usually the first thing you ask a client, right? Or a person buying a boat. Sort of, okay, so you're going to buy a boat. Are you going to use the boat privately? So are you going to use the boat for yourself and your family and your friends? Or are you going to be chartering her commercially? Because that makes a huge difference on so many fronts. Of course, from the registration, the building side, compliance with all the codes, as you know, with compliance with international conventions, a huge difference when it comes to tax on the yacht. Okay, so that's when VAT becomes very pertinent. Some clients have a very clear idea from day one that the yacht will be purely private. Some will have a clear idea that she will be commercial, perhaps with some private use by the owner from time to time. But more and more, we get situations where clients want to have the option. So they will say, yes, I will use her privately for the first year, but then if a charter comes along, I want to be open to it. So there again, at the moment when the client comes to you, that is usually not usually, it is the most important discussion you have, because I try now, of course, with experience, it's easier, but you really try and gather as much information as you can to structure the legal aspects of the purchase to offer the client the best possible solution on the information you have. Of course, things can change, okay? And then you need to go back and explain that, the registration needs to change, the VAT implication changes if you're commercial and not private, or vice versa. When I referred to charter before, I was also referring to the fact that Malta is an island, as you know. I don't think you've been, right, Andrea, yet?
No, I haven't.
Well, we'll have to get you here very soon. We'll have to organize something. So it is, of course, an island. It is popular for yachting for all the reasons I've mentioned too, all the legal and logistical services. As a chartering destination, it's interesting because, of course, we're not on the main trajectory of Spain, Italy, France, Greece. We're definitely not on the same level of popularity as certain jurisdictions, because we are some way out of the main, thoroughfare. But we do get clients who are interested in chartering from Malta. So you get some beautiful boats coming to Malta. The client would fly in, or he would travel to Malta and the charter would commence from here. And there are also tax benefits if the charter starts from here. So as a pickup point or a drop-off point, Malta is becoming an important, also it's an important part of the sort of Malta product that we're trying to refine and work on.
I am very excited. I would love to visit. I have to say, I did learn more about Malta when I saw you at all these events, and then I started digging into I didn't know the weight that Malta had in the yachting industry, and
Yeah.
you definitely piqued my interest in wanting to know more of how it was connected in this whole piece. Like you're saying, it may not be in the path, but it's definitely a popular destination for many yacht owners. Thank you for sharing so much of what it is that you do. It definitely gives everyone a better understanding of how the legal piece is, is integrated into the owner experience and then yachting as a whole. I want to know that you did start. You said you started from zero, and now you're a partner. So, what is it like to work? Or you said as a sometimes you see yourself as a manager, but how do you feel it's to work for your company?
How is it to work for my company? I mean, as I said, I obviously was fortunate that I'm working for a firm that has such a strong heritage in shipping. So it made things easy in the sense of, it's a firm that always aligned with the fact that I wanted to do shipping, and it gave me that opportunity. So I will be forever grateful. I was also very lucky, Andrea, because when I started from day one, I had an incredible mentor who is Anne Fenech, who, as I mentioned before, was the lady who hired me, really. And she is now the president of the CMI, the Comité Maritime International, a woman of 35 years of experience in shipping, and a very astute, switched on lady who you would, I'm sure, be very happy to interview as well at any point, because she certainly has a lot of experience. So I was fortunate because I was trained by someone who was very generous with her knowledge and insight into the wider shipping world. And I was given the freedom and the trust to grow. You see, so I came in with a lot of enthusiasm. I came in with a lot of I was very green, as I said, as everyone is when they're starting out. Though the fact that I had a background in shipping definitely helped. But then I sort of was nourished within this context. Of course, working for a very large firm, and for Malta standards, Fenech and Fenech is a very large firm, and the oldest firm on the island, brings with it its responsibility, its challenges. You need to, step up and pull up your socks and make sure that you're delivering, and not just, sell your product, but make sure that when someone hires you to do it, you're giving the best possible service so they can come back to you again and again. And so I was lucky. I was given a free hand, but I always knew that if I needed support, and if I needed to check something because I was not sure or because I had never come across it, then there was always somebody I could turn to discuss it with. And I think that was really important to me. And I know that I was very, very fortunate in that respect.
There's definitely, I say there's always like a lot of luck. And then when people meet you, it's just, no, you put in the hard work, you were in the right position. But honestly, all these things have to come aligned for you to have such a healthy professional growth. So I love that when you said they're very generous with their network. When I was green, I didn't see that, or with their network and their knowledge. I just wanted to be in a good environment that was attached to a big project or something when I started as a yacht designer. But really, the benefit was someone that wouldn't be afraid of sharing with me their tips and their knowledges and point me in the right direction. When I do a lot of my consulting, people want this like answer for the big picture, and I was like, the most valuable thing is actually telling you what's the right path, so you don't waste all this time on getting there on the wrong resources, because when you're green you just want to know it all. You just feel like there's so
Yes,
much you don't know that you just want to like you become very desperate for knowledge
yes.
to be able to grow. So having that mentor, wow, um definitely lucky, but I'm sure you made it easy for them as well, to
But
be
I think,
guided.
I think that I've met a lot of people now in this industry over the years, and from different aspects of the I mean, not just from the legal side, obviously, but we have such a varied network of people that we have the fortune of meeting. And I love speaking to designers, especially. I love, speaking to the creative side of the industry, and to all the architects and the crew, and really all the people who then bring it to life. And I find that it is a generous industry. I think that there are people who are willing to share and they are willing to speak and they are willing to, pass on their love for what they do, because it is an industry that is spurned a lot by passion. A lot of the people who work in it really enjoy what they do. And usually when you enjoy what you do, you want to share it with people. So I just think it's a positive industry. I'm sure there are still things which need to be worked on, and there are still people who you come across who unfortunately do not, embody that. But there are a lot of people who are willing to share their expertise and knowledge. And I think that we also owe it to pass it on.
Yes, I'm definitely all about actually sharing knowledge. That's actually why I started, though. One of the reasons I really enjoy starting the platform. But I've actually had both experiences. You've been now in the industry for a very, very long time, of course, and very successful as well. So I wanted to know if you had anything that you want to say it's like your proudest moment or your biggest accomplishment to date, obviously, in yachting.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I've had the moments where, in your career, when you sort of look back and they are special in that instance. So I remember the first time I spoke at an event in Nice that I was invited by Thierry Voisin, who was a very well-established broker there. And I had just been, starting off for a few years. So at that moment, I felt, oh, I'm going to look back and say, this was, a landmark. I'll keep remembering this. And then when I, was appointed as chair of the yachting section at the Malta Chamber, and I started to do a lot of policy work for the government, again, you sort of say, this is nice, it's an achievement. I can put it down on my LinkedIn and it looks really good. And then you realize how much work that brings with it. And you're sort of, okay, now what? What I do, though, one of the highlights so far is a few years ago, as chair of the yachting section at the Malta Chamber, we organized the first Malta Maritime Symposium, so Malta Super Yacht Symposium, rather. I mentioned the Maritime Summit because it's happening actually this week. It's a totally different thing. So we organized the Malta Super Yacht Symposium together with the Malta Maritime Association, which was the first of its kind. So we sort of stole a bit the idea of the round table formula from our forum. Don't tell them that, but I really like the idea of, people sitting around the table. And we invited Seabass, we invited Rena, we invited some leading shipyards who luckily came. And for the first time ever, we brought all the players in the local yachting industry around the table on key subjects: Malta as a jurisdiction, chartering from Malta, the Malta flag, how we can improve the law, how can we become a crew island and attract crew, because we know that the link between a flag and the jurisdiction and the owner very often is the captain and the crew. So we picked a number of topics and ran a 2-day event, and it was a real success, to the extent that people still say, when are we going to have another one? And I always say, well, we need to have something to talk about, and we can't just have, organize things just for the sake of them. I'm just waiting for the next big thing. But I look back and I remember those 2 days. We worked very hard leading up to it, myself and all my colleagues who were, really working hard to put it together. And you know how hard it is to put an event together. And
I do.
how many sleepless nights. And then I just remember being there and just running on pure adrenaline. I was so happy and I was so feeling that it's what I was meant to be doing, and everything was flowing so well, and all the panels were really running well, and I was just on a high. Probably just, it was like a dream that I just have this amazing memory of it. And I think that was one of my highlights so far.
That's wonderful. Well, to get there, you've had to have all this experience before, and then you packaged it all up to bring value to so many other people. I love that you mentioned Mariform, because that's where I met you, in the middle of the room, moderating all these competitors at some point. So I thought you did it so smoothly, because I could feel the tension from all corners of the room, because they all wanted to talk about their flag. So I don't know if you felt it, but I was like, you could cut this tension with a knife.
Well, no, we all love each other. Come on. It's
Everyone's very lovely, but everyone still wants to showcase their benefits.
it's a highly competitive industry.
Exactly.
So, of course, when you met me, I was actually invited by a forum that is sponsored by the Cayman Islands. I mean, that's the lovely thing, who are some of my best friends. I mean, they're a lovely bunch. And I'm always very honored when I get invited because technically Malta has a competing flag, right? The truth is, though, that there are instances when Malta's not the best, perhaps, solution for an owner, and they need a non-European flag, and that's when, of course, flags Cayman and Marshall Islands are so important. And I think that when it comes to the flag, everyone wants to make sure that the standards are so high when it comes to the codes that the flags impose, to make sure that yachting is as safe and as observant of crew rights and hospitality and security and really all the things that are needed, that everyone speaks out of the same hymn sheet. And that's why then, we get to organize all these events. But yes, I was very excited when I was sharing that. It was, I remember what you're talking about. Clearly.
And I cannot wait to go back. It was a great experience, and I hope I get to be there next year. I'm assuming it's an annual event, so I'm hoping it will also be.
It was a great event. Yes, yes.
Yeah, and I get to learn from everyone again. I know you've been now in yachting again for some time, and I'm sure you've seen so many changes as we all have. But in your specific field, what changes have you seen, and where do you see the industry going?
Okay. Well, that's a big question. Over the years, I've definitely seen that the industry has become more professional, more sophisticated, more aware of rules, both owners and the why are you laughing?
You said more aware of rules, so I want to know what was happening before.
Well, you don't, that we will just skim over, perhaps. No, it's well, before perhaps certain principles, now no lawyer talk is going to come out, you asked for it. Certain principles weren't, adhered to as much as they should have, or people were not as aware. So you would find perhaps situations where yachts would be registered commercially, just to avoid paying VAT, while it was just the owner who was using the yacht all the time. And technically that shouldn't, be the case, because there needs to be a form of, a commercial arrangement. So there were instances where people would try and find the best solution by cutting corners, let's just say that. And I think that is something which you find in other industries as well. Of course, by time laws become more up to date with what is happening. Definitely a big subject which we didn't hear much of when I started is sustainability, and all the different metrics that are now being applied and measuring the environmental impact of yachts. And I'm seeing so much tremendous work being done by associations such as the Water Evolution Foundation that we hear so often about. The role of the banks in taking into account environmental impact of yachts when lending finance is also extremely interesting. The investment the shipyards are making in making better use of technology, of greener fuel, of alternative methods of propulsion. I think that's just absolutely fascinating. So I think we're moving towards a more educated industry. The people you tend to meet, especially in the events you and I attend so many of, tend to be quite, quite well versed in what they do. So you tend to meet very high profile yes. People who, again, work very hard and know what they're doing. So it's something which I think can only get better. I think we need to keep investing in it. And I always tend to end up saying our industry already suffers from the fact that it tends to get negative press from the outside, no matter what it does. You know, we always start off from the guilty unless proven innocent foothold. So I always take it on myself to be an ambassador for the fact that the industry really generates so much work, and so many different players depend on it, and how important it is to the economy of so many countries. And also the fact that when you really home in on the polluting element, doesn't mean it's not there, don't get me wrong, but it is really a very small fraction when one looks at the greater picture. But of course, yachting gets attention because yachts attract attention. So yes, I think it's an interesting time to be working in, and I think that it will just keep on getting better. But we need to keep our standards high across the board.
Yes, very well said. I'm not surprised. I do agree with you. I have also seen the change of more knowledgeable people, not only in the industry. I think being given the microphone, because many of them have been there for a very long time. But now we have more and more of these forums that make us more aware that we have really well prepared people with such diverse backgrounds. When I hear how they got into yachting and then I hear them speak, it sort of all comes together. I was like, oh, you used to actually have, like, I don't know, a political background, and you used to work with different foreigners and alternate. So it's sort of like it's a melting pot of so much diverse knowledge that when you hear them speak, I don't know, I feel reassured that they are part of the yachting industry. And yes, we get a lot of negative press, but like you really pointed out, and we see this thankfully to a lot of the boat shows that do these summaries that let us know that for example, like the Florida show generates so much income for Florida. So that really, tips the balance of like how valuable it is to have those shows and those events and the yachting industry in itself, because it really does provide a lot of wealth for a lot of individuals that work in the industry at all levels. So, so that's a really good point, and thank you for sharing that. Can you tell us something you don't know? I know you're active on social media, so maybe this one's the harder one, but basically something that I won't see on LinkedIn as part of your resume that I could use to sort of connect with you when I see you at an event. So can you tell me something I wouldn't know about you?
Okay. Okay, so here we're verging in the topics of hobbies, right? And spare time, and yes. Okay, so what don't you know about me? Well, I mean, obviously, but that it doesn't count. I love sailing. I'm not a sailor, but I love boats, so I tend to plan holidays around sailing with friends, which I absolutely love. I do a lot of yoga, which is something that keeps me, I feel, more balanced, because it is quite a high pressure job. So there's obviously always something going on. The pace is very quick. So I try to find ways in which I try and disconnect and pause. So I do practice yoga. I've been practicing it for many years. And I'm also thinking of doing a training course, and at some point, just for myself. I will not be teaching, but just for myself.
Wow.
Yes, and really nothing out of the ordinary except swimming in Malta. I'm very fortunate here. I can. We're still swimming now. I was swimming in Gozo, which is the sister island, just last weekend. So it's really warm, beautiful weather. So I get to spend a lot of time next to the sea, either swimming or just hanging out and just hearing the waves. So. I feel very fortunate to live and work here.
That's great. I actually was a swimmer back in my day,
There you
competitive
go.
swimmer. Yeah, I'm happy people don't notice it anymore because before it would be the way that people would say hi to me. They would say like, "Oh, are you a swimmer?" And in my head, it was like, translation, you have a big back. Like that was a beautiful compliment you just gave me. It's like identifying big back
Yes,
walking.
because swimmers usually have very toned shoulders. No, that's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah. Actually, my mom tried to get me to quit swimming multiple times
Really
because she cared about like the feminine figure and stuff. And I was like, I'm winning medals. I'm not quitting. It was like,
good for you. I think swimmers look wonderful, and it's a fantastic sport. So yes, I
but I never swam outside. I always swam in a controlled environment, a
yeah.
pool. I was
Mm,
actually I, I'm fearful of actually swimming in open water. So it's actually very
I
interesting
see.
to me that this is something you really enjoy and you do often.
We do. And actually, just last week it was quite windy, and you do feel some very strong currents here. In fact, a lot of foreigners that visit tend at times to struggle with that if they're not used to it. So, yes, swimming in the Med can be. You need to know your waters, I say. You know, not just in the Med, really everywhere. But we do a lot of open swimming, and it's something which keeps us grounded, I like to think, you know.
If you could go back in time and maybe give yourself some advice when you were green, what would you say to yourself if you were starting yachting again?
Oh, wow. This wasn't on your prepared questions, was it?
The last question.
Was I didn't see this one. Oh my goodness, what would I tell myself? Probably to to not be too hard on yourself, you know, I guess when you're starting out, and that it is normal not to know everything at the same time, and that you're always going to be learning. And it sounds like a total cliche, but it's the absolute truth. You never know everything, and not to be ashamed to own up to that, because you know people who pretend to know everything don't. So I tend not to be shy to ask questions even if I feel they're obvious, because no one ever says, oh, what a stupid question she just asked. Usually people are just embarrassed to ask it. So I think it's all of that really, and to just take it a step at a time, you know, and really give yourself time to also enjoy the process and enjoy the growth and enjoy the journey and enjoy your career, and enjoy the even the moments that come with it, you know, like the enjoyable part of it and the social aspect and all of that. So I think now at this point I'm at a stage where I feel I can get to do a bit more of that, if you know what I mean, because you sort of have the experience you can, you know, rely on, but also, you know, people in the industry, and you also have the management skills to balance work and life a bit better, perhaps. So, yes, or that's what I like to think.
I
I
think that's
try.
very valuable. I know you said that that could be cliche, but those are cliche for a reason. When we get older, you were like, that was true. You know, I shouldn't have dismissed this comment that I heard often, but accept that you don't know what you don't know, and don't be afraid to ask questions. I many times ask something, and I've had people say, like, really, are you not embarrassed to ask that? I don't know it. Do you? No. So here I am raising my hand. And what's the worst that can happen? They'll figure out that I didn't know that answer, and I'm completely fine with it. Um, I'm more
I
like,
agree.
I'm
I
old. I
agree.
don't care at this point.
No, I agree with you. It's actually I think a sign of intelligence. So there's nothing to be embarrassed about.
Well, Alison, this was amazing. Thank you so much. Before I let you go, you have to tell me, let me know if there was anything that we didn't cover, and most importantly, how can we follow you to stay connected? I know I follow on LinkedIn, so I'll leave
Yes,
the
I am
spoiler there.
hugely, I'm very active on LinkedIn because I think it's a fantastic way to keep in touch and people use it. So I'm a huge proponent, and I like to post photos of my trips and my speaking engagements and follow people I admire and see what they're up to and learn what's happening in other jurisdictions, because that's the thing with yachting. It's not enough to know what's happening in Malta, but you need to have an idea of rules in other countries when it comes to legal work. So yes, you can follow me on LinkedIn, and that's it really. That's my professional platform. I don't have any other exotic handle. So there you go.
That's my preferred one too. I know in yachting, at least in what I do, I need to be active on Instagram, but LinkedIn is my preferred one. First of all, everyone's username is their actual name, so they're easier to
Thank
find.
you. Thank you. That's a very valid one.
I sometimes see people at the dock and I look at them and in my head I only know their username, which is not their name. So I'm
what
like,
would you call them then?
I was like, imagine it's like Yacht Bear. So I'm like, want to scream across the dock, and I was like, this doesn't seem right. But you didn't have your name, so it's not my fault that I memorized Yacht Bear. So, so
That would make spending time on the marina very interesting, wouldn't it?
you do see me sometimes screaming and looking down just to get people's attention. And if they turn around, I can introduce myself, but I'll be screaming that ridiculous username because I don't have them on LinkedIn and I don't know who they are. So yes,
Yes, I
LinkedIn is
think, well,
great.
I think it serves I think all the platforms serve a different purpose, you
Of
know. I
course.
mean, obviously our website and our LinkedIn account are the main professional ones. And then obviously once you connect with people on other levels, there are other platforms like Facebook and Instagram. I tend to be more sort of conservative and stick to my, more professional ones. But I'm a lawyer, so I have to be professional. There you go.
I was gonna say that you have to watch even more what you say because you can know what happens with that. I need to practice that more now that I'm being quoted. I actually have some help from Francesca Ragnetti, who she said it was like, I love that you're so candid. Let's minimize this into let's clean this up a bit. And I'm like, okay, I need help. So slowly hoping to match you.
I'm sure you're fine. I'm sure you're fine.
Well, thank you so much. If there's anything else that you want to leave us with before
No,
I
I
let
just
you
think
go.
that what you're doing is amazing. You know, what you mentioned about connecting people, of course, but also allowing people to find their mentors or people that want to know about, which otherwise they wouldn't. I think there's this huge movement of women in yachting, which has been there now for a number of years, and now there are so many different platforms offering that discussion, and I think it gives a context for people to connect. I always enjoy these events, and I'm looking forward to the awards in November soon. And I wish you luck. I'm sure it will be a success. And thank you for all your good work.
Thank you so much for joining and for your support and for coming to Mets and being there, supporting me while I'll be probably trembling on stage. We'll do my best to hide that.
No, you won't.
As you said, now there are many chapters or many companies that have a section that supports this movement of women in yachting. And I think it's amazing. Some people, when I started in 2017, and I stopped and I was derailed. Some people would message me saying like, they're copying you. And I was like, this is great. Now there's more people talking about women in yachting. The more associations we get, the more women will be noticed. And when I was doing the awards, looking over the amazing candidates we have, I realized that we are still not doing enough because there were tons of candidates that I had to rely heavily on what the nominator said about them because I couldn't find a digital footprint for them. Not everyone is as good as you are. You are really good at LinkedIn and really good at keeping us in the loop, not only with your personal achievement and your company's achievements, but also where the industry is going. So you really give a breadth of like contents and keep us in the loop. And it's again, for me, the legal side of yachting is not something that I'm well versed on. So I do learn actually from you where to actually pay attention. So that's wonderful. But there's so many people that don't do that. It is a lot of work to actually have a digital footprint and keep it updated and keep it active. So yeah, I think it's great that there's so many, but we can be doing so much more. to continue to share and highlight many more women. So thank you so much for your time, and I cannot wait to
It's
see
an
you
absolute
again.
pleasure. I'll see you soon.
See you soon. To the Yacht Femme. If you like what you heard, please like, subscribe, and comment. Your comment will help us reach a broader audience. And don't miss the next episode. Bye!